Arrogant lawyer exposed after mocking grandma discover how she wrote the law he relied on. The diner buzzed with the familiar rhythm of clinking dishes and murmured chatter. Sarah wiped down a table, her thoughts a whirlwind of anxiety. Just days until the eviction hearing, she fought the gnawing fear in her stomach. Mark Turner, the smug lawyer defending the landlord, believed he would easily bulldoze over her grandmother, Evelyn, an elderly woman clinging to the only home she'd ever known. The idea made Sarah's blood boil. How dare he mock her grandmother like she was just an irrelevant relic? Yet, here she was, a mere waitress in a small-town diner, staring down the barrel of a corporate titan. As a child, Sarah felt invincible, playing in the old house that had been in the family for over 50 years. Now, that comfort was slipping through her fingers. Her grandmother was fragile, besieged by years that had carved lines of sorrow and resilience on her face. What would happen to her after eviction? Would the place harboring countless memories become just another lost chapter? With every shift completed, Sarah raced to the library, searching through dusty newspapers stacked in the back. She unraveled glimpses of a past that seemed to sparkle with a forgotten determination. Evelyn as a law professor, drafting groundbreaking tenant protection legislation. An emotional storm brewed within Sarah, entwining pride with desperation. Her grandmother was more than she appeared. Before long, a moral dilemma crept into Sarah's mind. Could she use her grandmother's legacy to fight against Mark's arrogance, to expose his complacency and legal manipulation? Mark's laughter echoed in her mind as she recalled their morning confrontation at the cafe. He brushed off her passionate pleas with sarcasm. "You're taking this all too seriously, sweetheart. We both know how this will end," he had laughed, a disarming smile plastered across his face. The sting of those words settled deep within her, fueling her determination. "Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Back at her small desk littered with papers from Evelyn's archive, Sarah felt a surge of dread wash over her. She was drowning in her thoughts, a cauldron of doubt. She'd come so far, yet the fire within wavered with every obstacle encountered. As she reread documents late into the night, a chilling revelation struck her. Mark's firm had exploited the very laws her grandmother wrote to protect tenants. Her heart raced in agonized contradiction. Should she use this newfound knowledge for aggressive retaliation? Or did true justice lie in upholding Evelyn's principles? The courtroom loomed on the horizon, fraught with tension and impending chaos. The thought of stepping into it made her muscles tighten. What if she stumbled? What if Mark's laughter echoed in her ears again, mocking her courage? With each pondered scenario, her pulse quickened, battling between the roles of defender and avenger. The line blurred, and in that moment of uncertainty, any lingering confidence began to disintegrate. Facing the embodiment of corporate ruthlessness, would she falter or withstand the pressure? Just as she pieced together her resolve, the sudden, unexpected appearance of Mark's personal assistant revealed threads of secrets that could shatter her resolve. Would those secrets alter the very justice she sought, or add another layer to the boiling storm simmering in her heart? A heavy silence settled in the small room where Sarah sat, the dusty leaves of books lining the shelves appearing like ancient guardians of knowledge. She stared at the documents strewn across her desk, snippets of her grandmother's life. Evelyn's legacy felt both heroic and burdensome. The materials represented hope but also the weight of expectation. Clutching a faded photograph of her grandmother during her tenure as a law professor, Sarah felt the flicker of inspiration spark within her. As night bathed the town in shadows, a sense of purpose enveloped her. She needed to gather her thoughts and strategize. There was power in the written words around her, and they could be her weapon against the rising tide of corporate indifference. She would delve deeper, not only into her grandmother's history but also into legal archives. Knowledge equated to strength, and her fingers danced across the keyboard, conducting research into tenant rights and the nuances of law that her grandmother once fought to protect. The following days were nothing but a blur of relentless tasks. Each library visit unraveled hidden truths about the legal system. She found countless cases where Mark's firm had taken advantage of vulnerable tenants. With every quote she copied down, a fire ignited in her chest. It wasn't just about fighting for her grandmother, it was about standing up for justice. The stark difference between her early uncertainty and this newfound ambition astounded her. She had become a seeker of truth rather than just an innocent bystander. Late nights at the diner transformed into early mornings at the library. Each gathering of information honed her skills, building confidence she had previously lacked. The moment she discovered the loopholes exploited by Mark's firm, the realization was monumental. She could challenge him not simply through her grandmother's legacy but on sound legal grounds. Still, doubt clung like an unwelcome shadow reminding her of Mark's mockery. "Sweetheart, it's cute you think you can change the outcome," he had scoffed. But could she? The words replayed in her mind as she prepared her notes for the upcoming hearing. Now, she needed to articulate her findings not just as family loyalty but as a legal argument. The weight of the task ahead both exhilarated and terrified her. On the eve of the hearing, Sarah's heart raced while pacing her small apartment. She practiced arguments in front of the mirror, trying to convince herself of her own potential. In those reflections, she saw someone who could rise to the occasion. The thoughts of her grandmother filled her mind, brave, relentless, inspiring. Would Evelyn witness her venturing onto this battlefield? What if she found her lacking? Each doubt was met with the fierce recall of her grandmother's wisdom. Her mother had once told her, "The justice of a few can ignite change for the many." As Sarah prepared for the next day, a moment of clarity struck. She would turn the tables. She would not merely defend her grandmother's rights but also unveil the truth behind Mark's manipulations. It was time to confront the arrogance head-on, to challenge not just a lawyer but the corporate system that gave him power. In the quiet before dawn, Sarah felt the electricity of her resolve. She was not just a waitress. She was her grandmother's legacy, a fierce defender armed with knowledge. The courtroom awaited, and with each reaffirming thought, she stepped closer to reclaiming the past and shaping her future. As she bundled her papers together, a notification pinged on her phone. It was an email from the library. They had found further information on a case related to her grandmother's work. Reading the subject line, Sarah's pulse quickened. The last piece of the puzzle might be more than just a detail, it could turn the tide for her grandmother's case. With a determined flick of her wrist, she clicked on the message, anticipation bubbling in her stomach. What would it reveal? The email loaded slowly, the anticipation twisting in Sarah's gut. Her eyes skimmed the text, landing on phrases that leapt off the page. Key details regarding a precedent set by her grandmother breathed life into the dry legalese. Sarah's fingers quivered with excitement. This wasn't just historical context, it was ammunition. The case in question revealed a loophole Mark's firm leveraged repeatedly. Enveloped in adrenaline, she could almost feel the scales of justice tipping in her favor, yet, her excitement collided with a surge of anxiety. Would her knowledge and the documents she so painstakingly gathered be enough to stand up to a seasoned lawyer like Mark? The courtroom was a labyrinth where manipulation and intimidation thrived. She envisioned the sterile environment, the judge's gavel, and Mark's feigned indifference, confident in his twisted superiority. But this new information could dismantle his smirk of arrogance. Sleep eluded Sarah, thoughts spiraling around her ultimate confrontation. The echoes of Mark's dismissive remarks cut deep, but they also fused into a resolve that steered her towards her destiny. She wasn't just her grandmother's legacy, she was forging her own path, and this information was her lighthouse in a stormy sea. Morning light encroached on her apartment, drawing her from troubled dreams into a day bursting with possibility. She reviewed her notes, layering the findings from the email into her arguments. Each segment clicked into place like pieces of a puzzle: the loophole, her grandmother's wisdom, the victim's stories, everything coalesced into a singular purpose. She was not entering the courtroom to defend an idea, she was there to challenge a machine. As she gathered her belongings and stepped outside, the chill in the air invigorated her. There was strength in her conviction, a sense of duty that propelled her forward. The clock ticked mercilessly, counting down the moments until she stood before the judge, armed with knowledge and fueled by purpose. She navigated through the bustling streets, the city alive around her, unaware of the battle preparing to unfold within its very heart. Upon reaching the courthouse, Sarah's hands trembled slightly as she clutched her folders. Memories of her grandmother's unwavering commitment surged within her, lacing her resolve with fresh vigor. She was not just here to settle a familial debt, she realized she was a vessel carrying forward the fight for justice, a fight her grandmother once championed. As she entered the courtroom, the fractious atmosphere settled around her like a heavy fog. She spotted Mark at the plaintiff's table, scanning the room with an air of superiority. The sight stoked her inner fire, reminding her of the determinations she had forged in the quiet of her apartment. After the judge took his seat, Sarah's pulse quickened. Arguments flowed from Mark's lips, steeped in cold confidence, each word an ice dagger aimed at what he thought to be her vulnerability. But as he spoke, Sarah felt a wellspring of strength rise within her, a profound understanding that she was ready to reclaim her narrative. The moment arrived when she would rise to present her case. As she stood, trembling but focused, the courtroom dimmed in her mind, surrounding her with echoes of her past. She inhaled deeply and began to weave together her research, her grandmother's name, and the stories of those affected by Mark's firm. Each word resonated with newfound authority, challenging the accusations Mark threw with ease. "When I learned of the loopholes exploited by your firm," she began, her voice steadying with each syllable, "I couldn't help but remember the principles my grandmother stood for." The astonishment began creeping across Mark's face, his confidence faltering before her very eyes. Yet, just as Sarah felt the tide of the room shifting, the judge interrupted with a question that sent ripples of doubt through her. Did she have the strength for this? Could she transform momentum into victory? Mark's smirk returned before her, taunting, a reminder that intimidation was his favorite weapon. But determination replaced fear. This was her moment to confront not just Mark, but every oppressive notion that sought to keep those like her grandmother from achieving justice. As she stood before the judge, the room felt electric. The questions were not just judicial, they were deeply personal. Every ounce of self-doubt swirled in her mind, yet within her was a spark that refused to be extinguished. "In the interest of justice, let us expose the truth," she declared, feeling the words resonate in the depths of her being. "Starting with your manipulation of the legal system, Mark." In that moment, Sarah realized the battle was not only about confronting her opponent but transcending every fear that had ever held her back. And yet, with the stakes rising higher, the moment began to unravel, throwing her into a new, unforeseen conflict. She could sense repercussions looming, and they were just as terrifying as the man she had sworn to confront. As the judge turned to Mark for his response, Sarah braced herself for the next onslaught. What would be revealed in the coming moments? Would she crack under the pressure, or would she stand resolute against the tempest awaiting her? The judge's gaze fixed on Mark, awaiting a response. The tension in the courtroom crackled, convincing Sarah that every pair of eyes, including her own, was now riveted to this moment. Mark leaned back, a deceptive calmness washing over him. He casually adjusted his tie, an act designed to reinforce his confidence, as if the very fabric could shield him from the truth Sarah had begun to unravel. "Your Honor," Mark began, his voice dripping with mockery, "it's adorable to see an amateur grasping at straws created by ancestors, believing somehow that their ghosts should confer wisdom." A collective tension shimmered in the air, the room poised between disbelief and horror at his dismissive tone. But as Sarah listened, a steely resolve began to crystallize. She had anticipated Mark's condescension, she had spent long nights mentally rehearsing these very moments. Where he saw folly, she recognized a rich opportunity. Leaning slightly forward, she matched his tone with unwavering conviction. "Perhaps it's you who should spend more time reviewing the precedent," she countered, driving her words deeper, pulling the room towards her side with every syllable. "Your manipulations built on arrogance are precariously close to dismantling the values my grandmother embodied." The incredulity in Mark's eyes momentarily transformed into frustration. He shifted in his chair, realizing that this was no longer simply about defeating a rival. It was a challenge that threatened to expose the very foundation of his success. The judge interjected, voice steady but commanding, "Let us stick to the evidence and avoid personal attacks." Yet, Sarah seized the chance. Each second that passed felt like a lifetime, a river of urgency flowing through her veins as she reached for her folder, scanning her meticulously organized papers. She had data ready, stories of impassioned victims, precisely coded rebuttals filed neatly in the margins. She began assembling her arguments. "Your Honor," she started, deliberately invoking a more formal tone to regain the judge's focus. "The foundation of my argument lies not in personal history but in legal accountability." Like an artist meticulously painting a mural, she carefully laid each fact across the canvas of her speech, illuminating her findings as she spoke. "And while I respect Mr. Mark's skill at obscuring the facts, the loopholes his firm exploits are not tools of innovation, they are weapons aimed at dismantling lives, just as they strike at the very heart of justice." The resolve in her voice injected life into her argument, drawing her own breath from the ancestral wisdom grounding her in this battle. In that moment, she became more than just her grandmother's legacy. She felt the essence of other advocates, those who had fought for what she stood for, rushing through her. This was more than a legal dispute, it was an extension of history, passion transformed into purpose. Mark's composure began to crack, revealing the faintest glimmer of uncertainty. Sarah watched as his self-assured smirk waned, a palpable shift echoing through the courtroom. The balance was tipping, but she couldn't let her foot off the gas. Would it not be a disgrace to our legal system to allow such exploitation to continue unchecked? To allow individuals who have already suffered to be silenced again? She locked eyes with the judge, willing him, through sheer force of will, to see the truth she had unearthed. In response, Mark exploded with indignation, launching into a rebuttal that was a string of legal jargon punctuated with personal invective. He had managed to regain some composure, but it sounded hollow, devoid of the confidence he had exuded moments earlier. As he attempted to reassert his narrative, Sarah felt something shift internally. Was it confidence blooming or fear dissipating? The very act of standing up put air back into her lungs. She could feel her narrative steadied around her. In the recess of her mind, cracks began to form in her earlier self-doubt. With every rising note in her voice and with every sharp response to Mark, she understood that the power rested in her grasp. The courtroom transformed into a battleground, every disclosure a blow against the righting of wrongs. As Mark fumbled through his defense, desperately clutching at fragile arguments, Sarah sensed the moment approaching. This was the point of no return, she needed to seize it with both hands. "Your Honor, I can demonstrate precisely how Mark's firm is systematically exploiting vulnerable individuals, and how they deliberately manipulate legal loopholes to serve their interests rather than justice," she declared. Yet, before she could present her evidence, a sudden commotion erupted, a disruption in the gallery. Someone had stood, drawing attention. Eyes turned. It was a figure Sarah recognized, yet not fully processed. This unexpected interruption froze her heart, an unanticipated jeopardy unraveling her carefully constructed momentum. She stood tall, but would it crumble in an instant? What had just stepped into the courtroom could change everything. Sarah's gaze narrowed as she tried to absorb the unexpected presence. The courtroom that had felt so electric moments before, now buzzed with a disconcerting energy. The figure, was it truly him? A fleeting memory danced behind her eyes, halting her thoughts mid-flight. With a sharp intake of breath, she recognized the neatly tailored suit and piercing eyes that so often felt like daggers. It was Daniel, her estranged mentor, a man she had once admired but had subsequently walked away from in pursuit of her own path. His presence felt like a jolt of electricity, adding a new layer of complexity to her already charged atmosphere. Daniel's sharp jawline and confident stance provided a stark reminder of the professional agility he had once instilled in her. She could hear echoes of his advice weaving through her mind: know your audience, but most importantly, know yourself. The judge's gavel struck against the sound of rustling chairs and whispered speculations, but the echo reverberated in Sarah's heart. Was this the reinforcement she needed, or a distraction that would lead her astray? "Order in the court," came the judge's voice, pulling Sarah from her spiraling thoughts. She steadied herself, resolute not to let doubt cloud her focus. But as Daniel took a step forward, her heart raced, torn between admiration and betrayal. "Your Honor," Daniel began, his voice smooth yet resonant. "I'm here today to shed light on some key points regarding this case." He met Sarah's eyes, a flicker of something: regret? Support? She couldn't discern. She watched, breath caught in her throat, as he began to dismantle Mark's arguments with surgical precision. His mastery of the law was undeniable, and each citation he produced seemed to hit Mark like a well-aimed strike, blurring the lines between friend and rival. Waves of uncertainty crashed over her. How could she compete with this? With the very mentor she sought to leave behind now standing starkly against her? It was as if the floor beneath her feet had shifted, disrupting her footing. But within that turmoil flickered a glimmer of determination. She embodied the very spirit of advocacy they both revered. Fighting for justice was her calling, not just a game. A sudden realization took shape: Daniel's presence could not obliterate her own voice. In contrast to the past she had built together with him, this was her battle, and the lessons she had internalized were hers alone to wield. She had trained her mind to see cases not just as legal battles, but as narratives filled with human experiences. She had crafted her own story, one interwoven with the resolve to honor her grandmother, which was beyond the guidance of any singular mentor. As she gathered her thoughts, channeling her inner strength, Sarah met Mark's eyes and smiled, silently challenging him to dismiss her again. She took a deep breath and allowed the courtroom's intensity to fuel her, not intimidate her. "Your Honor," she began, her voice now carrying a steadiness that shook off the vestiges of doubt. "While I respect Mr. Daniel's knowledge and presence, I would like to remind this court that the intrinsic value of this case is rooted in compassion for those who truly matter, the victims of exploitation." Daniel's gaze shifted toward her, and she noticed the faintest hint of approval behind his stern demeanor, as if he had momentarily forgotten the role he had chosen to play today. "Just as you eloquently bring legal precedent to bear, I intend to flesh out the individual stories behind the statistics, the real people whose lives are shattered by dogmatic tactics." With each word, she unfurled the evidence. She meticulously curated personal testimonies, financial records, and case studies, little miracles of victims' stories preserved in the confines of her folder. They painted a vivid picture that could not be ignored. Mark's confidence noticeably began to falter again as he tried to regain an argumentative grip, but Sarah felt a newfound alignment of purpose, a merging of her grandmother's legacy and her own professional integrity. With the courtroom hanging on every word she spoke, she could almost envision her grandmother standing beside her, whispering encouragement. But as Sarah built her momentum, another voice echoed in her mind: why had Daniel really come? Was his intervention meant to assist or sabotage? Clarity eluded her, and she suddenly felt the weight of uncertainty viscerally pressing down. Her heart raced with a mixture of determination and irritation, driving her to confront the dual complex emotions rattling inside her. The very dynamic of the room seemed to shift once again as she realized her battle was not just against Mark but also within herself, wrestling with allegiance, credibility, and her own growth. As the legal exchange continued, Sarah leaned on her advocacy while keeping a wary eye on Daniel. She sensed that his presence, rather than being a lifeline, could become a shadow lurking just behind her every argument. Feeling the tightness in her chest deepen, she knew the time was swiftly approaching when she would need to confront the very source of this inner conflict, Daniel's intentions, and thus, with one last resolute glance at him, she braced for the inevitable exchange that lay ahead. What had begun as a personal battle for justice was evolving into a pivotal moment of professional reckoning. The arena was primed for revelations, shifting dynamics, and potential alliances, and Sarah was at the heart of it, ready to unveil more than just the truth about Mark's disputed practices. But would her ultimate truth have unexpected ramifications, not only for her case but for her entire career? The looming shadow of Daniel suggested that catastrophe and clarity were just a heartbeat apart. The courtroom felt charged with tension, each heartbeat resonating against the silence that now cloaked Sarah. The judge's gavel had fallen, marking time not just in the legal sense but within her, clocking the moments of her growing resolve. She remained poised, ready for Mark's rebuttal, but her thoughts swirled around Daniel's unexpected involvement. He was a force she thought she had left behind, a relic from an era of mentorship that she had actively chosen to reinvent. Yet there he stood, dismantling her preconceptions with each articulate phrase. The vestiges of admiration mingled with irritation. How could he re-enter her narrative so effortlessly? It made her question if she had ever truly stepped out of his shadow. Gritting her teeth, Sarah leaned harder into her case, reminding herself. It was more than winning for her, it was about justice for those who had suffered and a homage to her grandmother's memory. She could not allow Daniel's presence to deter her from that mission. "Your Honor," she interjected as Mark prepared to counter. "With the utmost respect to the complexities of this case, I'd like to address something crucial. The logical framework Mr. Daniel has just laid out relies heavily on the interpretation of statutes, yet it is essential to remember that laws exist for people, not the other way around." Suddenly, Daniel's piercing stare shifted, almost grudgingly acknowledging the point. It illuminated her ambition and inner conflict. Was he there to mentor or to undermine? Had he come seeking to remind her of her inadequacies or open her eyes to deeper truths? Mark surged forward with an offense, wielding his legal acumen like a weapon. "The law, Miss Harper, is built upon precedents, not emotional appeals. You can't pick and choose what parts you wish to emphasize based solely on sentiments." Tension crested, but instead of crumbling under pressure, Sarah felt emboldened. "But if the law does not serve humanity," she countered, "then what is it worth? If it merely becomes a battleground for intellectual showdowns among lawyers, we fail the very people we are sworn to protect." Her voice dripped with conviction, the words flowing not just from a professional image but from a well of personal resolve. Witnessing Daniel's furrowed brow, she sensed a shifting dynamic. Could he see her argument for what it was, a call to action? A reflection of her growth in understanding the law as a living document that must adapt to the pulse of human experience. With each phrase, she shifted the narrative in her favor, feeling the entire courtroom become a captured audience. It was exhilarating, frightening, yet liberating all at once. She was articulating something she had long suppressed, a voice once hidden in the shadow of a mentor now taking a stand. Sensing she was at a pivotal moment, she decided to confront the more profound implications of Daniel's presence. "Mr. Daniel," she stated, directly aiming her words at him but audible enough for the judge and jury, "if you believe the law can merely disassociate itself from the real effects it has on vulnerable lives, then perhaps you've lost sight of your initial purpose as a lawyer." Heat prickled up her spine as she faced him. The sharpness in her tone was a reflection of her own internal conflict, culminating in this one exchange. The palpable tension and the collective breath-holding in the room spoke volumes. It was vital that she confronted not just Daniel but herself. What was she really afraid of? Was it the potential loss of endorsement from someone she once looked up to, or the fear that her growth wasn't validated by his approval? Mark's face clouded with confusion, but for Daniel, the flicker of surprise indicated he hadn't anticipated such assertiveness. A part of her wondered if she had just crossed a line, but she was done playing small. This was her moment of truth. As she spoke her pieces, Sarah noticed marginal shifts in the jury's expressions, a dawning comprehension that perhaps the laws they lived by carried with them an ethical responsibility. When Mark attempted to redirect momentum, she seized a deeply heartfelt narrative about the victims of exploitation, weaving a thread between legal principles and real human tragedy. She bore witness to lives irrevocably altered because of rigid interpretations of what the law dictated. But amidst her resonating words, one question nagged at her: would the truth she fought for ultimately be overshadowed by the weight of Daniel's influence? inspire her to reach greater heights or cast shadows over her burgeoning independence. Each logical argument felt like a duel, and she knew while armed with knowledge and stories she would soon have to delve into the complexity of her relationship with Daniel, defining once and for all how to thrive without his overshadowing presence. As tension built, Sarah prepared for the inevitable confrontation she was steeling herself towards. She would demand clarity from Daniel, but first she needed to win this case. Every second felt crucial, every glance exchanged dangerous. Her destiny lay on the scales of justice, where the duality of professional allegiance would soon be addressed. Would she step into her full potential or return to complacency? Outside the courtroom doors, her future beckoned ominously, demanding resolution. As the trial loomed ahead, Sarah felt an electric tension coursing through her. Each passing moment echoed with her internal heartbeat, the courtroom lights blaring down on her like a spotlight. She had expended so much energy confronting Mark and the implications of Daniel's reappearance that she had scarcely allowed herself the space to consider her closing arguments. Now, with the endgame in sight, clarity emerged amidst the chaos. She paced back towards the front of the courtroom, her mind racing. The courtroom was a battleground not only of evidence but of narrative and conviction. Her grandmother's unwavering belief in justice, the one thing that had been Sarah's guiding light, propelled her forward, urging her to finalize her stance. Sarah needed to incorporate that personal touch, intertwining her professional passion with familial reverence. As she began to sketch her concluding remarks, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that Daniel's presence might have been more than just a threat. What if he were, in his own convoluted way, guiding her towards a pivotal understanding of her professional identity? Could she find a middle ground between absorbing his wisdom and asserting her independence? With a deep breath, she opened her notebook, jotting down thoughts that seemed to flow from a wellspring deep within her. The words she wrote stirred a profound recognition within her. The law should evolve alongside the people it serves, and she was part of that evolution. The anxiety that had once paralyzed her shifted into determination as she rallied around that truth. She needed the jury to not only understand the legal framework but to feel it resonate with their own experiences. Her heart raced, not with fear but with empowerment. She envisioned standing before the jury, radiating certainty and moral clarity. Each individual seated in that room had their own stories, their struggles aimed at seeking justice. It wasn't mere compliance to legalese, it was representing the living, breathing embodiment of those laws. Her grandmother had used the law to lift others, now it was Sarah's turn to do the same. As the bailiff called the court back to order, Sarah stood tall, channeling the warmth of her grandmother's memory into her voice. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, as you deliberate on the matters at hand, remember that this isn't just about determining guilt or innocence. It's about acknowledging the real human consequences behind these decisions. Trust in your ability to see beyond the statutes, and instead embrace the humanity that each one of us carries. As she spoke, she caught Daniel's eyes. There was a hint of admiration there, perhaps even a flicker of curiosity about how she had transformed the landscape of their shared legal world. The internal battle she'd fought against his looming influence was silently forging strength within her. Once she concluded her statement and the jury exited to deliberate, Sarah stepped outside the courtroom to take a breath. The air felt thick with potential, charged with uncertainty about the decision they would reach. Yet, despite the tumult within, she felt a simmering confidence bubbling to the surface. Amidst the cacophony of noise reverberating in her mind, another realization struck her. Confronting Daniel wasn't just about his shadow over her professional life, it was about her own self-doubt lingering beneath the veneer of confidence she had portrayed. The implications of that realization sent ripples through her thoughts, compelling her to distill her purpose even further. She had to face him head-on. Not with the intention to argue but to confront her own trajectory. To understand why his presence had rooted itself so deeply in her psyche. As the weight of her resolve steadied her breath, she made her way back into the courtroom's recesses, ready to seek out Daniel. The tight knot in her stomach faded slightly. As clarity emerged, she was ready to define the terms of their relationship both personally and professionally. Stepping through the doorway felt like crossing a threshold into a new realm of understanding, but as she approached him, uncertainty prickled at the edges of her newfound confidence. Would this conversation fortify her independence or expose deeper vulnerabilities? Daniel, she began, her voice steady but her heart racing. We need to talk. The air between them thickened, the past and present colliding in a moment that felt pivotal, pregnant with the promise of future revelations. What would this conversation unveil about her, about him, about where they stood in each other's lives? The impending confrontation lingered, an unanswered question that demanded to be explored. Daniel studied her for a moment, his brow furrowing as if deciphering a map. The courtroom's muted sounds faded into the background, leaving just the two of them suspended in an unresolved tension. Sarah, acutely aware of her surroundings, felt the gravity of the conversation weigh heavily on her. This was not merely a professional discussion, it was the crossroads of her past and her future. Talk about what? His voice was sharp, but there was an underlying curiosity that hinted at a willingness to engage. She hesitated, a flash of doubt sneaking in. How could she express the turmoil that had churned inside her since Mark's case began, compounded by Daniel's infuriating presence? Instead of faltering, she focused on the firm ground beneath her. About everything that's between us. About how your presence has influenced my path. I can't pretend it hasn't. The intensity in his gaze shifted. Influenced? Or controlled? She bristled at the accusation but took a deep breath. I'm not here to argue. I want to understand what it is, this back and forth, the lessons and the shadows. I need to pinpoint what triggers my self-doubt when you're around. His expression softened, and for a brief moment, Sarah glimpsed the person she had once admired. The careless bravado had faded, exposing vulnerability. There's a reason I push you, Sarah. You need to confront your limitations if you want to grow. Is that what you call it? Pushing? The sarcasm slipped out reflexively, but behind it lay a thread of genuine confusion. You've questioned my decisions, undermined my confidence, and now you want me to see that as an opportunity for growth? Daniel shrugged, but there was an open sincerity in his eyes that caught her off guard. I believed you'd rise to the occasion, but perhaps I was too harsh. Too harsh is an understatement, she shot back, the fire igniting her voice. You can't demean someone while pretending you're their ally. It creates a power dynamic that isn't conducive to growth, it's suffocating. The air charged, and she felt the volley of words expanding the distance between them, yet at the same time, bringing them closer to unearthing truths. Then why do you let me suffocate you? He challenged, folding his arms as if confronting his own demons. A moment passed, laden with realization. Because I wanted your approval. I thought by aligning myself with you, I would discover the best version of myself, maybe someone more successful, more revered. At this revelation, Sarah felt as if shackles had fallen away. In admitting her desire for validation, a bridge between them began to form, not as adversaries but as equals wrestling with similar ambitions. I thought I was trying to help you become a stronger lawyer, Daniel said, his voice taking on a reflective tone. But maybe I lost sight of what that meant. I turned it into a competition. Back in her mind, layers peeled away, self-doubt mingled with burgeoning confidence. Here was a confrontation that hadn't merely tested her resilience, it had paved the way for an unexpected alliance. Could they work together, even with their differences? Being a lawyer isn't about proving superiority over others, Daniel. It's about serving those who need us. I want to redefine my purpose with clarity, and I hope that includes finding common ground with you. The sincerity of her statement lingered in the air, and she saw something shift in him, a recognition of potential unity, despite their messy histories. Yet, just as hope flickered, Daniel's lips tightened into a thin line. But what if we're still too entangled in this rivalry to truly help one another? His question hung weighty between them, a challenge to reconsider their shared journey and the possibility of leveraging rather than competing against each other. This was not just about her career, it was about reshaping their professional destinies and navigating the duality of growth and conflict. Then we'll have to learn how to let go of the past, Sarah asserted, her resolve rekindled. Otherwise, we're doomed to repeat it. Daniel nodded, slowly acknowledging her perspective. What's next for us, then? She took a breath, a vision forming in her mind that blended courage with professional ambition. Let us start by redefining our roles. Maybe that means collaborating on cases that resonate with both our convictions. As the implications of her suggestion dawned on them, a sense of anticipation crackled in the air. The challenge of re-establishing their relationship loomed like a passing storm, and yet, the echoes of their initial confrontation still rustled within her. Could they truly bridge the gap that had been forged? With lingering questions surfacing, Sarah felt the weight of possibility. The foundation for her professional evolution had been laid, but would she have the strength to embrace it? She remained poised for the embarking journey, wondering if they could indeed transform doubt into an alliance. After all, the moment of truth may soon reveal who they really were to one another, and whether their paths could converge in unexpected ways. As the courtroom buzzed back to life around them, Sarah felt a pulse of determination surge through her. It was as if she had just discovered a switch within herself. Doubts were replaced by an invigorating sense of purpose. She could no longer base her self-worth on Daniel's approval, nor allow their tumultuous past to drown her ambitions. Adapting a new perspective required courage, and she was ready to take that leap. Let us explore that new direction, she said, her voice steady despite the undercurrents swirling between them. We could identify cases that align with our values and tackle them together. Daniel tilted his head slightly, considering her proposition. He had spent so long priding himself on independence that the thought of collaboration felt foreign. Yet, in the profound silence following her statement, he seemed to weigh the possibility against years of rivalry. Part of her felt he might hesitate, still clinging to the mantle of competition that had defined them. We would need to set some guidelines, he finally replied, casting a cautious glance her way. No undermining, no competition, purely partnership. That phrase purely partnership struck deep. Until now, Daniel's presence had felt more like an obstacle than an ally. Sarah nodded, her heart racing. This acknowledgement held a key. Both were striving toward similar goals, yet entangled in conflict instead of motivated by shared purpose. Yes, absolutely. But we also need transparency. I want us to be honest about our feelings as we navigate everything. Honesty, he repeated, a slow smile creeping across his face. I think we could both use a lot more of that, don't you? Sparks of hope ignited a new dynamic. In this daunting frame of upheaval, they were beginning to carve a new path, one that blurred the lines of adversarial facades and ventured into an unpredictable partnership. Yet as every interactive move revealed a form of vulnerability, Sarah recognized the responsibility that came with evolving their connection. How would they reconcile the ghosts of their pasts? In the following days, Sarah busied herself strategizing on their first collaborative case. The idea of intertwining her professional vision with Daniel's acumen sparked a newfound creativity. She pored over files of a pending civil rights case, determined to leverage their combined strengths effectively, but with each passing moment, the reality of teaming up with Daniel began to stir up profound questions. Could she trust that his newfound commitment to a unified front would withstand the pressures of high-stakes law? Yet, trust required taking risks, and that was part of her growth. They met to discuss logistics, nervously skirting remnants of previous conflicts in favor of brainstorming fruitful paths forward. With each idea tossed into the pool of potential strategies, Sarah had to remind herself to keep skepticism at bay. I think we can present a compelling argument by focusing on the human element of the case, she proposed during their meeting. If we frame it in terms of impact, real consequences for real people, we can resonate with the jury. Daniel nodded, but there was a flicker of doubt that clouded his eyes. And if the opposing counsel tries to dismiss that angle, which they will? We'll need a backup plan. Then we develop contingencies, she countered, leaning forward, compelled to prove her evolving competence. Weigh every angle. It's critical to anticipate their moves. Their conversation deepened as they sketched out outlines, their previously divisive dialogue morphing into a constructive collaboration. Amid the banter and passionate exchanges, an odd comfort bloomed. But behind the excitement lurked the reality that their past didn't surrender easily. The moment they faced external setbacks, questions from mentors, disapproving glances from peers, the old shadows loomed large. They found themselves in position to argue before a formidable judge. The contours of self-doubt threatened to creep back in, pulling at the corners of Sarah's mind like clouds obscuring bright skies. "Daniel," she began, faltering as he shot her a reassuring glance that momentarily quenched her uncertainty. "This is our case now," he said softly. "Don't back down." Their eyes locked, and for the first time, she truly viewed him as an ally rather than a rival. But as adrenaline surged in anticipation of the hearing, Sarah felt the weight of the impending trial bear down on her, a crucible to determine their capacity to work together effectively. Would they rise above the chaos that had defined them? Or would their internal conflicts resurface at the most critical of moments? Clearing her throat, Sarah took a deep breath, preparing to face the judge. The turning point of their professional relationship was about to be unveiled, and the stakes had never been higher. Would they emerge victorious or fall back into old patterns that had nearly derailed their aspirations? The moment of truth was upon them, and both uncertainty and resolve swirled like a tempest within her. Only time would tell what their new alliance could achieve. The courtroom buzzed with anticipation as the judge entered, signaling the start of what felt like a pivotal moment in Sarah's journey. The tension coiled tightly within her. She had navigated countless obstacles to reach this point, but today was different. This wasn't just about her grandmother's legacy or her personal vendetta against Mark. No, today she stood united with Daniel, transformed by their shared aspirations and a commitment to take action for justice. As the arguments unfolded, Sarah felt the weight of her collaboration with Daniel settle over her like a protective cloak. They had prepared meticulously, drawing on each other's strengths while willingly confronting their vulnerabilities. With every word spoken, Sarah infused her passion for justice into their narrative, reminding herself that this wasn't merely a legal battle but a representation of those who had long been silenced. The stakes were higher than her individual ambitions, lives depended on their success. The judge listened intently, and the room was alive with energy. The jury hung on every word that solidified the evidence she painstakingly curated, the stories of those exploited by Mark's firm. This time, she didn't feel the ghost of self-doubt creeping in. Instead, confidence surged through her. She was no longer the uncertain waitress battling the corporate titan. She was an informed, resolute advocate demanding justice. As they presented their case, Sarah felt the tension from their past rivalry dissipate, replaced by a synergy as they complemented each other's arguments. Daniel, her former mentor turned ally, delivered orations that blended legal insight with emotional gravity, augmenting the strength of Sarah's narrative. They became more than just two lawyers. They embodied the spirit of partnership, ready to dismantle the systematic issues that plagued their field. "Your Honor," Sarah proclaimed, "this case is not merely about confronting Mark's manipulations, it's about reaffirming our obligation to use the law as a tool of empowerment for those without a voice." The room echoed her conviction as if acknowledging the gravity of her purpose. The spark of justice she carried ignited a fire within the jury, one that danced around every member, compelling them to see the truth beyond the legal jargon. Several hours passed as the trial reached its climax. When the jury finally retired to deliberate, Sarah felt a mix of anticipation and fulfillment wash over her. They had not only argued a case, they had crafted a narrative solidifying their resolve to uphold the law as an instrument of change. Even as anxiety knotted her stomach, she found solace in Daniel's presence. Stripped of rivalry, they had forged a bond rooted in mutual respect. Together, they had ventured into uncharted territory beyond individual accolades to a shared goal. As they paced the empty courtroom awaiting the verdict, Sarah turned to Daniel, her earlier doubts vanquished. "I think we did well," she said, her heart swelling. "Yes," he replied with genuine warmth, "you've come a long way. You've become a powerful advocate, Sarah." The compliment washed over her, a validation of her journey from a mere waitress to a skilled lawyer ready to fight for those marginalized by the system. The door creaked open, and the jury returned. Silence fell like a heavy curtain. Every heart in the room beat as one. What would the verdict bear? The foreman rose and delivered their decision, a wave of relief crashing over the gallery as the words in favor of the plaintiff filled the air. It was a victory not only for the case but for everything she had fought to achieve. In that moment, Sarah realized she had not only reclaimed her grandmother's home but the essence of her identity. As the celebration began beneath the courtroom lights, Sarah's thoughts turned inward. She had conquered not only the courtroom but her self-doubt, proving to herself that she possessed the tenacity and skill to navigate the complexities of law. She had transformed into a fierce advocate, not solely defined by her past but nourished by her future potential. With a sense of closure enveloping her, Sarah knew she was ready to embrace this new chapter, a chapter where she would further her aspirations without being tethered to the shadows of her previous relationships. The courtroom was no longer a battlefield, but a sanctum of purpose, an arena where justice triumphed over arrogance. Sarah stepped into the bright future, illuminated by the wisdom of her grandmother and the lessons learned alongside Daniel. This was her moment, her well-deserved recognition. She had achieved not just a legal victory but begun a journey towards a fulfilling career marked by integrity. For those inspired by Sarah's journey, the message is clear: your support matters. You need to subscribe now to stay updated with exclusive emotional stories that can transform your life. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help more people discover these powerful narratives. Comment your reactions and theories about Sarah's transformation and victory. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to experience this inspiring conclusion. Let's spread the message of personal overcoming stories together. Don't wait even one more second to share.